Good morning, Britain. President Putin is urged to choose peace or pay the price. Only extraordinaire broadcaster in the family. Rugby one, but it's a funny one.
It's notionally right.
He says it's like dealing with the mafia.
Yeah.
That they, it's a protection dealing with.
And Putin
really.
is a very
something like 20.
Yeah, that's right.
Who's 70 is Amal Rajan overnight. Of course, he was, a massive story when he, in the end, was told to leave and deported. He's now saying that he would pay the price of missing out on Wimbledon and the French Open over his stance. It's about personal choice. And there are plenty of people who think that in this country too. The idea that you're being almost mandated to have it. You've seen what's happened in the NHS with care home workers as well. And, surgeons, doctors, consultants. It's more, I think it's, for some people, it's not necessarily anti-vaccine. It's more the top-heavy insistence that you can't travel, you can't. Sort of being really there for him. It does go, and it goes back to the question that you were saying. Countries in Europe are going, you don't necessarily need to be vaccinated. No, the economy, predatory nature of, being excluded from, of being excluded on the basis of a personal choice, rather than being, and I think that is the nuance in what Djokovic is saying, isn't it? But a group of people who are, and actually countries themselves are now saying, listen, most offender who is on the run from an open prison. Lots of people are questioning this morning, why was this person in an open ban has been caught? He is not to be approached. It is, Sean's top story this morning. This is, how far up does that go? It does try, he was trying to draw a comparison, but this questionnaire, hasn't he, by the end of this week, Boris Johnson? He's obviously to various leaders. We won't know what questions he's being asked, will we? The questionnaire... The
crew, everybody, would not talk about sleep anymore because the
conversation
when people arrive. Running on
Margaret Thatcher's hours. Hours a night, apparently.
We all just keep an eye on your glasses and cups and things today with the fluids in them, because when it starts to sort of do that, James Hassel will be approaching the studio.
When he's coming over for Sunday Roast.
I'm sorry if you've heard this story before. I have told it a couple of times, but I vividly remember the first time I met James, my son-in-law. Chloe had been going out with him, want to bring him home for lunch. So she brought him home for Sunday lunch. And on this particular Sunday, it's a lovely sunny day, and I was in the kitchen cooking, and I heard Chloe's key in the lock, and then she came in, and I heard her across the court floor, and I came out into the hall, and the sun was streaming in, and there was Chloe. No James, just Chloe. Chloe, Daddy, all that. So big hug in the middle of the floor. And I said, where's James? And she said, oh, he's just parking the car. And at that point, I thought there'd been an eclipse hallway, and this was when he was playing. So, he's tall anyway, he's about 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", but he was huge. And he was completely blocking out Extraordinary.
And he's in today, he's got a book out, hasn't he? But it's interesting because in the intro, the headlines there, you sort of called him a DJ, and of course he's an international rugby player and so on. But of course, I didn't realise until I was reading about him that I did not realise gets millions of streams.
Huge.
It's
a bit of rugby, but they talk about anything. I went on it about. We covered the whole gamut of life. It's very funny. It's a very funny podcast.
Yeah. So we have a professional broadcaster in the studio today, James Haskell. He'll be in. We've got an awful lot else in the programme too this morning, and we're going to be asking whether Britain should be doing more in the crisis in Ukraine.
What more can we do?
Where we said there'll be no troops going into Ukraine at all. There are some troops. A mass affairs select committee who has actually spoken out quite strongly about how Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, we also have on the programme, should be dealing with the Russians, saying that we need to clean up the illegal money that Russia ploughs into London. And unless we do that, they won't take any sanctions seriously. So
the point is, and we can say this, can't we, because we're not the BBC. The point is that the Russian regime is bent as ninepence. It's bent, and there's so much Russian money being channeled and laundered through London that is where to hit the oligarchs. That is where to hit.
It's also a former soldier, as it happens, and so understands a lot about these matters. Describes the Russian setup as mafia. For the elite, and they're now just extending it out. And that's what the honest and most lovely side of how to deal with money is the bank on Dave.
Oh, that's such a good story.
Oh, fantastic.
As part of entrepreneurship.
They now lend £1 million. They started off small fry. Netflix are now, Hollywood are in Burnley, and they're filming a Netflix film about him. So
who's playing him? Do we know who's playing?
Roy Kinnear. You might not know, but his face you will certainly know. We've got all sorts coming up in the show. 7 minutes past 6, but first we go to our top story, because the US President Joe Biden last night has told Boris Johnson that he said that there is still hope for a diplomatic solution to the crisis in Ukraine, despite the warnings that Russia could invade, well, we were saying Wednesday at some point this week. Yeah. The German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, heads to Moscow today for last-ditch talks, and our correspondent, Stuart Smith, talk about that with Kevin and Andrew, possibly. But there's another story around, and it's a weather story. And there's a historical first by the Met Office. We can talk to Laura about this. Laura's out at Grattan Park in